In my work as a business coach, I serve a group of what I call my elite clients, and we get together once a week for a mastermind where we kick off and share the biggest win of the week. And a trend that I've seen over the past few months, if not a couple of years, is that the wins are moving more away from the business successes, although those still happen from time to time. But the wins are often the opposite almost. It's what they've managed to achieve outside of work because they've found freedom through systemizing what they do and employing great people and creating a lifestyle through being purposeful about the type of work they are doing, the type of clients they're working with, the systems they're putting in place, and all the things that I help them work with. And what I wanted to talk about today was almost my own experience of this. I've been away now for 6-7 weeks with extended summer holidays here in Sweden, and I've really taken a huge chunk of time completely off from work. It's not all been easy. There's been some challenges, there's been some really big wins, and I want to share some of my experiences, some of the things that I put in place to make this a possibility, both recently, sort of coming up to the summer holidays, but also over the years that I've built up to be able to then have this freedom. And also just really be receptive to the challenges, mental challenges of actually switching off as a small business owner and someone who is still very much involved with driving the business and leading the business, and actually taking complete time off isn't always as easy as we think it would, even though I think that that is the goal for definitely for most of the business I work with, freedom-minded entrepreneurs that are building a business that gives them the lifestyle that they choose, alongside the success and the reward of actually running a successful business.
So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name's Dr. Steve Day and this is Systemize Your Success.
Okay, so I came back to work this week and I've pretty much been off work for about the past 7 weeks. I worked a half a day here and a day there over that period, just to basically keep my coaching clients happy and to make sure that I'm serving them. But that's not work I really have to think about in advance or plan for. I just show up at the times that are scheduled and answer questions and help people on their journey. So it's relatively easy and actually quite enjoyable for me to do that. And that was literally half a day, or there was 1 week when I worked about 6 hours, and then I took a couple of weeks completely off. So over the past 7 weeks, I think I've worked about 2 days in total. And this is a really nice reflection, or nice place to be, I should say, that I've managed to get the businesses, and I've run multiple businesses. I've got a property lettings business, and I've also got my coaching and systems and outsourcing business. And to be in a position where I have genuinely been able to take time off, that I haven't spent that entire time worrying about work or wondering what's happening or thinking, is stuff getting done? To be in a position where I've got the good staff in place, the good systems, the ability to, if I wanted to, check in what's going on, but also some things in place that allow me to be confident that no emergencies are happening that I'm not aware of. And that's really what I want to chat about today, is about how this came to be, and also some of the challenges I had this week, or this period being off. So when I first started this holiday, as I say, 6-7 weeks ago, I actually got into this sort of like, it was almost like a big dip. I wouldn't say it's a depression or anything like that, but it was like a big dip, and it was almost like I felt like I was trudging through sludge, if you like, and my brain was a bit foggy. And I think for me, it was just a building up to this period of going away, being a little bit worried coming up to it, like, how am I going to take this time off? Like, are my clients all going to run away while I'm away? Is it actually going to be a nightmare? And I'm booking these holidays specifically with my family, going camping, for example, in the middle of France, going down to the south of Sweden, not really having any office set up or the ability to work if I needed to. And I think I was more worried about that stuff than I actually thought I probably would be. And so coming into that period and going home, and I was hanging out with my mum, staying at her house. I did find this period of a week, if not a bit longer, of just almost like total switch off, and my brain like went almost to sleep. And I was thinking, my God, like, I hope I'm going to recover from this, because I couldn't really think about anything intelligent, and really struggled. And I think in reflection, it was just that it wasn't that I was that has happened so many times in the past ill, and I've actually worked so hard up until the point of stopping that I've actually become ill as soon as I've actually taken time off. But it was still the brain almost like moving from that period of being like that eustress of like being constantly thinking on the go and doing stuff with work, to then not doing. And it took me like a little bit of time to actually just get into it and accept it and say, it's okay. I don't need to wake up at silly o'clock in the morning and just jump out of bed and get on with stuff. It's okay if I have a lie in. I can feel a bit groggy in the mornings, and I can just hang out with the kids and do absolutely nothing. I don't need to be doing stuff. And I think part of it, but with an ADHD brain, you're always on the go as well. And it was almost just like this transition to accepting it was okay to be doing nothing. And that took me a little bit of time to get into. And I feel like it wasn't like I was actually fearing about the business at all. It wasn't like I was worrying or what was happening or anything. It's quite the opposite. I almost like switched off entirely from caring about it for a bit, and I was like almost questioning myself: is this okay? And I think in reflection, it was what I needed to do to then just get into this very slow pace of being away with the family, of working on their timelines, on just being open to doing whatever was going that day. Was it hanging out with my family? Was it going to visit some relatives? Was it just going to the park? Was it just sitting around doing a jigsaw? Whatever it was. And it was a really interesting transition that led me into having one of the best summers I've ever had. I genuinely just enjoyed being with my family. I've got kids that are 8 and 2. And it's such an important time, I think, in their lives for different reasons, being the 8-year-old boy and a 2-year-old boy. But being able to be there and just listen and play and just be around. And also for my friends as well, I live abroad. So when I go home, it's important for me to spend time with them and just not be distracted and thinking, I need to go to bed early tonight because I need to get up in the morning and do some work before we do the day stuff. Like, I got rid of all of that. And I think it's probably the first time, if I'm honest, I've done it for such a long period of time. And to do it and then to come back and find out nothing really has changed with the business. No wheels have fallen off. Everything is still hunky-dory. My staff are still there, still happy. They've been just going along with their daily stuff throughout the time. And it's just been one of those moments in life when I've actually just stop and think, gosh, this is actually what it's all about. This is why I started my business rather than working in the hospital, why I quit my job as a doctor, to be able to choose when I genuinely take time off, to be able to live wherever I want, and to be able to then be present for my family in these informative years where my kids are growing up. And this, I've done it, and I'm super proud of that. But to get to this stage, it's not something that's happened overnight. There's been things that had to happen. And in the short term, there was some planning that needs to happen for the time off. And in the long term, there's a number of things that I've been doing consistently over the years to get to this point. And for the short term stuff, it was very simple things, but like planning ahead for meetings, for example. What meetings am I going to have? Do my staff feel supported? Do I need to have a check-ins with them, speaking to them about it, asking them, when do they need to actually check in with me? Or are they happy just doing stuff in my absence? Getting their confidence, because, I just interviewed a guy actually this week who was talking about change management in business. And this is a change. This is a change from the status quo to a new way of working, even if it's for a short period of time. And one of the things we discussed in that interview was the guy, John Fisher, the Fisher curve. And it was talking about the importance of listening and communicating with the staff members, and to actually empathizing that they are going to feel something about this change, and actually being receptive to that and understanding of it, and helping them to get through that. And I think that was a big part of it. And I didn't do it really I probably didn't actually plan that as much as I could, and now I've actually learned a bit more about that from that interview I did. And next time I'll probably put even more effort into that. But I think that was part of it, just listening to or hearing what my staff were thinking, and actually trying to put things in place to make them feel supported. And then, as I say, rescheduling meetings, communicating with clients, explaining that I'm not going to be available, and part of that is a longer term thing. This actually came up in my Elite Mastermind today, which has prompted me to record this interview, this episode now, is that one of the things that I highlighted was that it's the importance of having the right clients that allows you to do things like take time off. Because if people are respectful of you and you respect them, then if you say to somebody, look, I'm going to have limited availability over the next 4 or 6 weeks or whatever, then good people, like the right clients, will respect that, and they'll understand that everybody needs to actually take time out. Everybody has periods where they're not going to be full on available. But I'll be there if there was a crisis, an emergency that I needed to help with, of course. But actually just working with people who are good people, who understand those essential things, family, and just respecting people's time. And that's a big part of it. So choosing my clients over the past few years, and a great book by Chet Mojaria called The Right Clients was definitely a big part of actually starting on that journey, and actually realizing that by choosing who I work with, it becomes easier to be me, and those people respect me for being me more than if I was trying to fake it and be something I'm not. And this is me. I want to be able to take time off. I want to be able to do these things with my family, but I also want to be a really good coach and support for my clients. And it's that balance and finding the right people that understand that make that kind of thing easier, I think. So a couple of things that are essential to allow me to take such an extended period off the operational side of my business is systems. And obviously I'm big on systems. It's what I help people do, but I can't stress enough how important it is that every core activity within our operational side of our business is documented in such a way that anybody can do it. And this became absolutely a paramount or essential on this period I was away this time, because my operations manager, unfortunately, has been on compassionate leave for the whole period pretty much that I've been away. They came back for a couple of days and then they've gone off again. This means that the key person who is dealing with a lot of the dealing with problems as they arose, onboarding clients, sorting out the financing stuff, and all these sort of little jobs that this person did, connecting stuff together, that person wasn't available to do any of that stuff. But the fact that we spent time over the past 6 months really documenting her role really well, because she's been with me since January, and we've done a lot of efficiencies over the past 6 months, but making sure as we're doing those changes, we've really paused and said, look, is this documented fully before we move on to the next thing? Because in the past, I've been guilty of just like moving on, and then trying to go back and sort of saying, hold on a minute, we've not actually got a flow chart for this process, or there's some videos missing here, so no one actually knows what's going on. But I was absolutely militant about it this time, saying, look, have you documented that? Have you created the process map for it? Could somebody else understand that process map without your involvement? And we just slow down the pace of getting stuff done to ensure that everything was documented. And it paid in dividends because, it paid back in dividends because as I've been away now, as I said, she's not been there, but all that stuff has still been able to be done by, other members of the team. And yeah, it probably wasn't done quite as efficiently in some ways that if that particular person had been doing it, because this is someone new doing a new task. But the fact that they could do it without having to interrupt my holidays or my time off and me to step back in and do it was absolutely brilliant. And coming back now, there's a couple of things that are outstanding that my operations manager had set up and involving quite a lot of automations, and there's a few little key tasks that needed to be done. And I just was able to jump in, look at the task list, the stuff that had been created that hadn't been finished off. And it was so clear about the few things that needed to be done that I was just able to jump in while this person's off, do these few things, and know that actually that, the client's been onboarded or whatever it was. So again, having spending the time now creating the systems, even if you think, oh yeah, I don't really need these now, everyone knows what they're doing. It's like you don't know what's going to happen. And this is the third time I've had 3 good operation managers over the years. The first 2 left with very short notice, and this one is on compassionate leave at the moment without any notice. It's like you never know when your key staff members are going to leave. And so it allows me to go away knowing that even if that particular person is on holiday, is off sick, or doesn't show up for work for some reason, that stuff can be done in their absence. But it also means that I guess that's it. Actually, it's just like knowing that I'm no longer codependent on any individual in my company, because I have the documentation that other people can step in and do the work if needed. And that for me has been a huge game changer. And the other one, this is a bit of a side point, but it's allowed me to really relax this time on holiday, is that as I've been working over the past couple of years, if I've got profit coming in, I've been putting a small amount of that profit away into a cash reserve account to build up a cash reserve. That means that if there's a period like now where I'm not really driving sales, I didn't do any sales sort of activities at all over that 6-week period. And the old me would have started getting stressed about that and worrying about the bank balance or whatever. But because I've put in place, or built up, I should say, over the past couple of years, a nice cash reserve that can mean the company can survive without any sales for a number of months, it meant I was able just to actually relax and just enjoy it and think it's okay. It's okay if I'm not driving sales this period. I can survive, and as it happens, we got sales calls booked in anyway, and I've come back this week, and I've got 3 sales calls booked in over the next 10 days from the systems we've got in place, with evergreen webinars and sales pipelines, etc., and lead magnets and the automation side of stuff we set up. So even without me being involved, it was super nice to see that actually sales were generated, but I wasn't actually bothered about that. It was just a nice bonus when I came back to it, to actually have those in place. And that was because, again, doing a bit of planning ahead allowed me to then really be able to genuinely relax and take time off. And the last thing I wanted to mention really was about, for me as a business owner, I would in the past have always worried that something was going on that I wasn't aware of, and that I needed to sort of step in and check and ask questions, everything okay? And one of the things that has made it possible again for me not to do that is to have very specific channels of communication for different means. So we have a Slack set up to allow all of our team to communicate, and they do the things like daily check-ins in there. So if I wanted to, I could have just logged in as usual and seeing, okay, what people are working on, etc. But we had a very specific policy that said, Steve's not going to check Slack on a regular basis. He may or may not do it. And actually, I avoided it completely, so I'm super proud of myself. But what he also said was, if there is an emergency, something that requires Steve's input, though I'm talking in the third person here, required my input, then the team will send a WhatsApp message to my personal WhatsApp. And that way I will get it, because I'm constantly on WhatsApp anyway because of family and friends. And so therefore, if they send the message to my personal WhatsApp, I will then be aware of it and be able to then action it if needed. And it happened once. And in fact, I missed the WhatsApp entirely, and it didn't actually get done, and it wasn't the end of the world anyway. But that's beside the point. But the fact that was there, the fact there was a specific channel that they knew that if there was an emergency, they would use it, and I knew that if there was an emergency, they would have WhatsApp me, and in this case, they would have WhatsApp me again if it was super urgent. And so that was the last probably piece in the puzzle for me to allow me to stop checking in. Because the minute I check in with, if I hadn't had that in place, and in the past I would just check my Slack thread to see has anyone messaged me, I'm getting distracted with all of the noise that's going on in those Slack channels. We have lots of things pinging off in Slack. It's like one of the core communication channels, and lots of automations put stuff in there for us to be aware of, etc., etc. If I hadn't separated business entirely from the personal WhatsApp emergency channel, then I would have been forced to dip into the business side of stuff, which the way my brain would work would drag me back into that mentally on a regular basis. So this way I was able to be like sleep well, knowing nothing disastrous was happening, because I wasn't getting, alerts in my personal WhatsApp for the emergencies, if they had happened. And that really was the final piece, I think, that allowed it to happen. So planning ahead, in summary, planning ahead. So communicating with your team about what's expected while you're away, making sure it's really clear what meetings are going to happen and which meetings aren't going to happen, communicating with clients about being away, and probably I could have done that even better, and I will do that better next time, but rescheduling client meetings, blocking calendars, not allowing people to book in, making sure like sales calls can't be booked in while I'm away, all those sort of things. So basically blocking and organizing calendars and time. Those are essential sort of steps for the short term. Making sure things are documented well enough that other people can take over. That's a huge like stress relief, but also means I'm not dragged in to help support people when somebody's off sick or whatever. So having that documentation in place meant that things happened even without me being there, just because the team could be able to step in and do stuff. And having specific channels away from work communication to alert me to absolute emergencies where I needed to check in meant that I wasn't dragged back into work. And that was it really. Those are, I think, the key things that made this possible. And the same goes, with my property business, is having. I've got an agent now that looks after my properties on a day-to-day basis. I mean, that's just it's such an easy thing to do. And yeah, I pay a percentage of my revenue to it, but it's also like means that I can genuinely take time off from my properties without ever having a tenant ringing me about a light bulb or a washing machine or whatever. Like, that's not my job anymore. And so putting those things in place, and then having actually a PA that deals with the communication that comes in from my agent to allow her to basically deal with 90% of the issues that come up, means I rarely have to deal with any emergencies at all with regards to my properties. And so this has been a long-term process to get to the point where I was genuinely able to take time off, enjoy my holiday, come back without any disasters or anything I'm not really aware of, not have to check in and see how the team are doing. And yeah, I just feel proud of it and wanted to share it and hopefully inspire people who are getting into this idea of systemization. And maybe you're hiring your first member of staff, thinking about hiring a virtual assistant. And just to say, like, I spent 15 years as a solopreneur taking my work everywhere I went. And like just now, I was away last week in France. I did not take my laptop with me. So I genuinely, I had my phone with me. Of course, I could have logged in if I needed to. But I didn't have to. I didn't bother even taking my laptop with me. And I think genuinely, even when I've said like, oh, I'm not going to do any work, I always sort of took my laptop with me as a safety net just in case. And this time I didn't. I was on a campsite. I didn't want to lug my laptop with me, so I didn't take it. And yeah, nothing bad happened. So that's it really. Just want to share my experience of taking a considerable chunk of time off, how I've managed to prepare for that, both mentally and physically, so to speak, in regards to the business. And that, yeah, just really proud that I've done it and wanted to share it with you guys. So thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, then please, as always, do share it with your friends and colleagues and anyone else you find who you think might enjoy it and find it useful. And as always, I'd love for you to hit us up with a review, ask any questions, send me an email at steve@systemsandoutsourcing.com. And yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode or any other episode that we ever do. And if you want me to record anything specific, then let me know and I'll be happy to oblige. Take care. Have a great day.